There is a type of power so invisible, so sovereign, that most people will go their entire lives without ever discovering it. Not because it is hidden behind closed doors or guarded by secret societies, but because accessing it demands an iron discipline that cuts directly against every deep human instinct you have, your hunger for recognition, your need to be seen, your ego. The crocodile of the Niger River makes no sound before it strikes. Sit with that for a moment. Let that natural truth settle deep into your chest. The lion never roars before the hunt. He dissolves into the shadow of the savannah. The eagle announces nothing before its vertical descent. No warning cry, no dramatic signal. Just precision and silence, and then it is done. The Congo River never asked permission from the nations it crosses before, carving through the hardest rock on earth, across millions of years, driven by nothing but the relentless, invisible force of its current. I have spent decades carefully watching how real wealth is built on this continent, and more importantly, how it is destroyed. And I want to tell you something that most people only understand after a catastrophic loss, after a ruined partnership, after a broken family and an empty account. Most of the damage, the real damage, the kind that collapses empires and fractures bloodlines, was never caused by bad investments, never by global market crashes, never by currency devaluations or corrupt governments. It was caused by words, simple words, released too early from a mouth that was too confident. Your mouth may be the most expensive and most dangerous financial instrument you currently own. Today, I want to show you 5 things you must lock down immediately. 5 critical silences. 5 sacred spaces that belong exclusively inside your personal granary and nowhere else in the world. And I promise you that by the time we are done, you will never speak about money, about your projects, or about your life the same way again. Right now, across this continent, the sun is already bearing down on millions of people who wake long before dawn to build something real. Women carrying 40 kilograms of goods on their heads to reach the market by 5 in the morning. Young men teaching themselves to code in dusty cyber cafes with slow internet and zero guarantees. Traders crossing complex land borders with their merchandise, navigating bureaucracy and corruption in pursuit of a better margin to feed their families. When I speak about wealth, I am speaking about those people. Because real wealth on this continent does not begin in the air-conditioned offices of towers in Abidjan or Johannesburg. It begins in the silent, unannounced discipline of the individual cell, the family unit. The private decision made alone in a room with no audience. Aliko Dangote did not build a $20 billion industrial empire by announcing his next strategic move at Sunday family dinners. He did not post his supply chain contracts on social media for likes and validation. He did not hold theatrical press conferences before entering a new market. He moved in the protective shadow of silence and the world. Discovered what he had built only after the factory was already standing, after the product was already flooding the market, after it was already real, already finished, already impossible to dismantle. My grandfather taught me the most important lesson of my financial life when I was around 10 years old. We were sitting under the big mango tree in the courtyard on a heavy afternoon, and I had just excitedly told a neighborhood friend about the small street business I was planning to launch during the school holidays. I was proud. I wanted someone to know how smart I was. My grandfather waited patiently, without a word, until the friend had left the compound. Then he turned to me, held my eyes for a long moment, and said simply, "A granary has no windows." I did not understand it then. I thought it was old and mystical and irrelevant. I understand it completely now, after watching men fall. A granary, the kind our ancestors built, from clay and thatch to store millet and sorghum, the vital reserves that would feed an entire community through the hard, dry season, was never built to keep the outside world informed of what it contained. It was built to protect what was inside from the pressure of watching eyes, from the corrosion of envy, from the slow, invisible erosion that begins the moment others know exactly what you possess. In modern financial strategy, this erosion has a precise name: information leakage. And it does not happen in boardrooms. It happens around family tables, in WhatsApp group chats, in that one small, warm, prideful moment where you tell a single person, someone you trust, something strategic that you should have kept entirely to yourself. The first lock, the number. This is the lock most people break with a completely disarming naivety before they even realize it is a rule of financial survival. A major sociological study conducted over multiple decades tracked lottery winners and sudden large inheritance recipients, people who received life-changing sums of money unexpectedly. The researchers found something that almost nobody anticipated. The winners who suffered most brutally, who ended up isolated, psychologically destroyed, cut off from their own families, were not the ones who spent recklessly. They were invariably the ones who had spoken, the ones who let the exact number leave their mouth. Because the moment that precise figure entered the external world, it immediately ceased to be neutral information. It became a moving target. Every distant cousin who had not called in 3 years suddenly appeared with a revolutionary business idea that needed just a little starting capital. Every old friend who had quietly always felt you were luckier than you deserved. Every neighbor who believed, somewhere deep in their psychology, that the universe had distributed its resources unfairly. These people are not fundamentally evil. The human brain is biologically wired, after thousands of years of tribal evolution, to rebalance what it unconsciously perceives as an unjust distribution of natural resources. Psychologists call it the crab bucket effect. One crab in an open bucket will eventually climb out. 10 crabs in the same bucket, and none of them escape. Because every time one begins to climb toward the edge, the others pull it back down, not out of malice, out of collective survival instinct. And in the African context, this instinct wears the noble clothing of family obligation and communal solidarity, a value that is genuinely our strength, that unites us in hardship, but that can become a chain of financial servitude when it is manipulated. Nobody will ever say to your face, "Give me your money." They will say, with a heavy look, "You have forgotten where you come from." They will say, "Family is sacred. You cannot leave us like this." They will manufacture a medical emergency. They will organize a ceremony you cannot afford to miss. There is also a purely commercial dimension to this. The moment a local entrepreneur or contractor knows you just sold land for 50 million francs, the repair job that costs your neighbor 800,000 suddenly costs you 2 million. He is not stealing from you. He is pricing your financial information. The first lock: never reveal the precise figures of your finances. Not the exact number, not the general range, not even the direction of your affairs to anyone outside your sworn attorney and your accountant. The number stays inside the granary, always. The second lock: the silent move. Tell me honestly, has this ever happened to you? You have a business idea so electric, it wakes you at 2 in the morning, with your heart racing. And because the excitement feels like it will burst out of your chest, you do the most natural thing in the world. You tell someone. They say it is brilliant, genius, enormous, and you go home glowing with pride. And the next morning, inexplicably, the fire is slightly less intense. Neuroscientists have studied this exact phenomenon. The human brain cannot distinguish between the social validation of talking about a future success and the real satisfaction of actually achieving it. It releases the same dopamine reward signal in both cases. You receive the neurochemical payoff of accomplishment without having done the work. And the hunger that was supposed to carry you through 6 months of rejection, administrative obstacles, and early mornings when nothing functions, that hunger has been entirely spent in a single dinner conversation. But there is a darker competitive dimension. The moment you announce your market strategy prematurely, you hand it voluntarily to everyone who has a direct or indirect interest in blocking or copying it. Not because the people around you are demonic, simply because human beings have always competed for available resources. It is the oldest Darwinian behavior on Earth. A new business plan is like a seed planted in dry season. It cannot survive if it is exposed in an open field to wind and predators. It needs time in the darkness of the soil before it is strong enough, rooted enough, to face the full force of the midday sun. Never tell people what you are going to do. Show them what you have already done. The contract already signed, the account already funded, the decision already final and irreversible. At that point, there is nothing left to discourage or sabotage, because it is already real. Results are the only language on earth that cannot be argued with. The third lock, the advantage vault. There is a fundamental law in economics called the efficient market hypothesis. It states that any comparative advantage or asymmetric information, once made public, mathematically and immediately ceases to be an advantage. The moment everyone on the street knows exactly where the hidden banknote lies on the pavement, that banknote has already been picked up by someone else. Your competitive edge, your specific knowledge of a sector, your logistics strategy, your private supplier, your unfair advantage is the most perishable asset you own. More fragile than your cash position, more vulnerable than any local market monopoly, because it can be completely replicated in a single casual conversation. Dangote entered the cement market at a time when every major player was importing finished product at great cost through the ports. When competitors asked about his long-term strategy, he smiled politely, said very little, and redirected the conversation. By the time those competitors understood what he was building, he already controlled a hegemonic market, share with entry barriers that would take decades to dismantle. I see entrepreneurs every day find a method that works, an untapped niche, a unique marketing system, a sales approach generating real returns, and then, driven by ego or the desire to be seen as an authority, they teach it publicly, post it to their story, sell a course about it, and then they wonder why their own business quietly stops producing results. It stops working because you told the world the truth. You manufactured your own competition with a single Facebook post. Remember this: if the gold mine were truly full, the man selling you the map would be digging, not selling maps. The fourth lock, the heritage wall. This is the most painful lock because it involves the people you love most, your own children. I know a businessman who spent 30 years building a remarkable enterprise from a single second-hand delivery truck and a borrowed starting capital in the early 90s. When his children were finally adults, out of pure paternal pride, he sat them around the family table one evening and revealed everything. The bank balances, the property titles, exactly what each child would receive when he was gone. He thought he was giving them security. What he actually took from them that night could never be returned. He removed their hunger to build something of their own. Within 2 years, the eldest had quietly abandoned his career ambitions. The second had stopped finishing anything he started. Not because they were born lazy or incompetent, but because the most powerful engine of human effort is the healthy uncertainty of tomorrow. The deep conviction that your outcome depends entirely on your own daily actions. The moment you remove that uncertainty, you remove the engine. Leave your children enough for them to believe they can do anything and dare everything. Never leave them enough visible wealth for them to believe they have nothing left to prove. The fifth lock, the invisible act. We live in an age that has transformed genuine generosity into public performance. People give 5,000 francs to someone in need and then spend 40 minutes crafting the perfect LinkedIn post to announce it to the world. These people are not malicious, but they are making a disastrous spiritual trade. They are exchanging a divine act of kindness for a temporary dopamine, return from virtual applause. And once you need external validation to confirm the value of your own goodness, that goodness no longer fully belongs to you. My grandfather called it the difference between living with an interior dashboard and an exterior dashboard. The exterior dashboard is what the crowd thinks of you at any given moment. The interior dashboard is what you know about yourself in the silence of your room when the lights go out. The loudest people I have encountered at business forums and high-end hotels across this continent are always working desperately hard, not to build, but to convince you of something, their importance, their success, their intelligence. The truly silent ones already know what they have built. They do not need your confirmation to feel that they exist. Do good around you. Close the door of your house. Say nothing to anyone, and let that silent act compound quietly into what my grandfather called the spiritual capital of a lineage, the one asset that will never appear on a certified balance sheet, will never be borrowed by relatives, and will never be seized by any court in the world. The crocodile of the Niger River makes no sound before it strikes, not because it hides out of fear, but because silence is its natural state of performance. Silence is not a technique it learned from a business book. It is the essence of what it is. That is what I am asking you to become. Not someone secretive out of obsessive paranoia. Not someone silent because they have shameful things to hide. But someone naturally, organically silent because they have already built something on the inside so large, so valuable that it deserves to be protected. 5 locks, 5 silences. The number. Because once they know the exact figure, the nature of every relationship, you have changes permanently and never returns to what it was. The silent move. Because the hunger to succeed is fragile at the start, and one discouraging dinner conversation is enough to extinguish it completely. The advantage vault. Because your competitive edge is the most coveted and most perishable thing inside your business. The heritage wall. Because what your children do not yet know about your fortune will build them in ways that what they know too early never could. The invisible act. Because the good you do in silence, with no desire for recognition, is the only good that belongs entirely to you for eternity. The granary was never built to keep the outside world informed of what it contains. The granary was built to keep you and those you love safe inside. Build it carefully, one brick at a time, one sealed door at a time, and let your results be the only noise you make in this life.